Today for Theology Thursday, I want to do something slightly different than what I usually do. In addition to being the pastor here at First Baptist in Chandler, Arizona, I'm also a professor at Gateway Seminary, which is in Phoenix. Seminary is a graduate school for pastors or people going into ministry, missionaries or whatever it is. And so it's pretty high-level academic stuff. You already have a college degree before you come, and so it's people working on a master's or a doctorate. At our school, I teach Hebrew and Old Testament. That would be the Hebrew language that the Old Testament was originally written in. Plus, I teach Old Testament introduction, teach electives on various books of the Bible, Genesis, Psalms, things like that. Also teach Old Testament theology. I teach a class on hermeneutics, which is how to interpret the Bible, and some other things along the line like that. But I also sometimes teach the book of Jeremiah, which is my favorite book of the Bible. And in teaching Jeremiah this last year, I ran across a phrase that I'd never really studied much. And so one of the things that professors do is we get together at a couple of conferences a year and we read papers. Literally, you write a paper and you read the paper to your colleagues. And it's usually very focused and very intense and pretty academically oriented because we're all academics in there. And so I presented a paper back this spring at one of these academic conferences on the phrase, "Behold, the days are coming," in the book of Jeremiah. And I found some fascinating things I just wanted to share with you. I'll try to skip some of the more detailed academic stuff, like there's a pointed Ketiv and Kare in Jeremiah, and that's a disputed text. I'm going to get into all that kind of stuff. It's a bunch of really technical Hebrew stuff you probably don't care about. But I do want to talk about this phrase, "Behold, the days are coming," and what we find. And just kind of give you some highlights of the paper because I spent a lot of time in the early spring researching this. The phrase, "Behold, the days are coming," is used 21 times in the Old Testament. It's really not used in the New Testament outside of quoting the Old Testament. The phrase, "the days are coming," does not occur anywhere in the Bible except once Jesus says it in the book of Luke. So it makes it kind of a unique statement anyway. But here's what I found fascinating as well. Of the 21 times that the phrase occurs in the Old Testament, 6 of them are outside the book of Jeremiah. 15 of them are found in the book of Jeremiah. So we're looking at about 75% of the occurrences are found in Jeremiah. We have one in 2 Kings. We have one in Isaiah, which are identical. They're both when Isaiah came and spoke to Hezekiah. And so that makes those kind of, not normal. We have one in 1 Samuel, and then we have 3 times in the book of Amos. We find the phrase, "Behold, the days are coming," outside of Jeremiah. Of those 6 references outside the book of Jeremiah, 5 of them are a message of judgment. Only in Amos 9 do we find the phrase, "Behold, the days are coming," as a statement of hope. It's almost universally then a statement of judgment. Behold, the days are coming when God's going to bring his judgment on you, is essentially the way that works. So because of that, you would think when we come to Jeremiah, it certainly is going to be a term introducing a prediction of the coming judgment from God, particularly because Jeremiah is such a book of the coming judgment of God. Matter of fact, Jeremiah is not like the other prophets. The other prophets call the people to repent, to hopefully turn back the judgment of God. Jeremiah says, "You've gone too far. You've passed the commitment line." Like, that line that's, look, you can bail at any time, but once you pass this line, it's too late. You can't bail anymore. And once you've jumped out of the plane, it's too late to decide if you want to pull the parachute or not. You're out. You're committed now at this point. You're out of the plane. And so Jeremiah's like, "Man, you're out of the plane. The judgment's coming. There's nothing you can do at this point to stop it." One statement he says, "If Zedekiah was my signet ring on my right hand, I would tear it off and throw it away." So Jeremiah comes preaching this message of the judgment is coming. But we find something very interesting when we run into "Behold, the days are coming" in the book of Jeremiah. And so I just want to kind of give you a few things here. The first thing to note is of the 15 times in Jeremiah, all but one of them uses the phrase, "declares the Lord," name out of the 9 Hebrew. "Behold, the days are coming," declares the Lord. what's even more interesting about this particular phrase, behold, the days are coming, is that it's used 267 times in the Old Testament, and less than 100 of those are found outside the book of Jeremiah. 2/3 of the uses of declares the Lord are found in the book of Jeremiah. And the reason is because Jeremiah is in constant conflict with other prophets. He's preaching a message of doom because of their sin. They're preaching a message of, oh no, it's all going to be okay. God will deliver us. God will rescue us. Don't worry about it. Everything's going to be fine. Don't listen to this Jeremiah guy. And so there are competing messages. And so Jeremiah's like, no, behold, the days are coming. I know it because this is what God said. This is not my opinion. It's not my hope. It's not my dream. It is the truth. The truth right from God. This is what God has said. And so Jeremiah delivers this really strong message that way. So of the 15 times that Jeremiah uses the phrase, behold, the days are coming, declares the Lord, we discover some really fascinating things here. So the first thing we find when we look at the 15 uses of behold, the days are coming in Jeremiah is the first one is like we would expect, it is a message of judgment. The second one is a message of judgment, Jeremiah 7. All the rest of them are messages of hope, except for the last four. But the last four in Jeremiah are found in what are called the messages or the sermons against the nations, where Jeremiah predicts the destruction of these wicked pagan enemy nations. So in reality, the destruction of Israel's enemies is not a message of doom. It's a message of doom for Moab and Ammon and for the Syrians and for the Babylonians, all the people that, Jeremiah brings these messages. But the reality is this message of hope for God's people that their enemies will be destroyed. So in reality, what we end up with is out of 15 times that Jeremiah uses the phrase, only 2 of them are a doom message. Almost all the rest of them are hope messages. So here's what I discovered about this, what I want to encourage you with. Judgment Day is definitely coming. It is coming. There's no doubt about it. But the good news is that behold, the days are coming, off in the far future maybe, but behold, somewhere way down the line in the future, the days are coming when there's going to be hope, when there's going to be great hope. So here's what we see in Jeremiah that I want to bring some encouragement. I want to look at one of these, behold, the days are coming passages. So in the book of Jeremiah, we have the destruction of the city is predicted. So we have Jeremiah preaching. He's kind of down here by himself. On the other hand, we have lots of false prophets running around. Now, the Bible never calls them false prophets. They're just called prophets. Prophets who lie, prophets who speak falsehood, but they're still just called prophets. Now, their message was, yes, it looks like the city's going to be destroyed because the Babylonians are at the doorstep. But God's going to do something great before the city is destroyed and deliver us. Jeremiah said, you're right, God is going to do something great, but it's going to be after the city is destroyed. Somewhere down the line in the far future is where God's going to do great things. And so Jeremiah's message is, yes, there is a message of hope. There is, the days are coming when things are great, but it's not going to be as soon as you think it is. It's going to be way down the line. And so for you and me, the reality is that oftentimes the sorrow, the destruction, the negative, the doom arrives, but you and I don't wallow in it. That's not where we know we're going to end up. So no matter how bad and gloomy things get, we know that, behold, the days are coming, declares the Lord, when something great and good and wonderful is going to happen. And so let me just read you probably the most famous occurrence of this phrase. It's found in Jeremiah chapter 31, beginning verse 31. These 4 verses are the longest quote in the New Testament. They're found in the book of Hebrews in chapter 8, and then a shortened version in chapter 10. But it's the longest quote. Matter of fact, the fact that we even use the phrase Old Testament and New Testament comes out of these verses. So here's what he says. Behold, the days are coming, declares the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and the house of Judah. The Latin word for covenant is the word testament. So the New Testament's the new covenant. Based on this, I'll make a new covenant. Not like the covenant that I made with their fathers on the day when I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt, my covenant that they broke. Although I was a husband, declares the Lord. For this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, declares the Lord. I will put my law within them. I will write it on their hearts, and I will be their God, and they will be my people. No longer shall they each one teach his neighbor and each his brother, saying, Know the Lord, for they shall all know me, from the least of them to the greatest, declares the Lord. For I will forgive their iniquity, and I will remember their sin no more. So he says there's a new covenant coming, not written on stone tablets like at Mount Sinai, but written on the heart, that God is going to forgive our iniquities. He will remember our sin no more. You go, well, when did that happen? Well, Jeremiah is preaching in this particular sermon. Zedekiah is on the throne for about a dozen years. So from 598 to 586 BC, we get that far back. The dates could be off by a year or two or three or four, something like that. But best we can tell, those are probably about the best dates. So Jeremiah is preaching this message somewhere about 600 years before Jesus came. 598, let's just round that to 600 BC. So at least 575 years before Jesus came. Jeremiah says the days are coming when there's going to be a new covenant. Now that new covenant arrives with Jesus. In the upper room, when Jesus institutes the Lord's Supper and he takes the cup, he says, drink all of it, for this is my blood of the new covenant, which is shed for many. And so Jesus' blood seals the new covenant. So Jeremiah predicts, behold, the days are coming way down the line. And again, 13 out of the 15 are hope messages, either for the destruction of the enemy or for the great thing that God's going to do for us. So even though you may find yourself, you feel like you're surrounded by the Babylonians and there is no hope, don't ever give up hope. Because maybe after your life is over here, but behold, the days are coming when Jesus is going to come again. So the promises that Jeremiah makes, many of them are fulfilled in Jesus when he came and instituted the new covenant, as he said he did in the upper room. But also we know that there are more promises that are given in the Bible of the days that are coming. The day is going to come when Jesus returns. So even though it may be way off in the future, you and I do not live without hope. We live with hope because this is what the Lord has declared. Behold, the days are coming. And so whether they are shortly in front of us or far in front of us, you and I always live with hope, no matter how dark and desperate it may seem, because behold, the days are coming, declares the Lord. So I hope this is helpful and encouraging to you. It certainly has been to me, a fan of the book of Jeremiah, and discover the way he, a prophet of doom, doesn't end with the destruction of Jerusalem. He promises that down the line, the days are coming, that no matter how bad it gets, there is always a message of hope for those who belong to our God. So God bless you, and I hope that this has brought some encouragement to you that behold, the days are coming, declares the Lord.